Good morning. It's wonderful to be here in Osaka, the wonderful place, great expo, great hospitality from the people of Osaka and the Japanese people. A big thanks to all of you who have welcomed us here at the expo. We are here today to discuss the advanced air mobility in the role of region Puglia in Italy, and we're seeking collaborations between Europe and Japan. To kick off the day, I would first like to welcome on the stage His Excellency Mario Vattani, Commissioner General for Italy at the Expo 2025 Osaka. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all, and especially a warm welcome to the Puglia region that has accompanied us in this last week. And I'm very happy to have a delegation here from the Puglia region. It's difficult to set a stage and then for things to happen more or less how you set them. And this is exactly what happened with Regione Puglia. We started talking with Regione Puglia at the very beginning of our planning of Expo, still at the time when this pavilion wasn't even fully designed yet. And we were planning to design a pavilion which would be an instrument. An instrument, of course, to present Italy, to present its culture, to present its territories, its high-quality products, its technology. But at the same time, we wanted a pavilion that would reflect the variety and the richness that is represented by our system of regions. And we needed allies in this. And I dare say that, and this is why I want to thank Governor of Puglia, Michele Emiliano, and Assessore Alessandro Delinoci, which we had also met in Tokyo at the very beginning of these phases. And because they reflected and they picked up what we wanted to do, and they reflected it in what the planning was of having Puglia region here today. Because Puglia region, in the wonderful installation that they prepared, present themselves mirroring what we are saying about Italy. So they present themselves with culture, they present themselves with art, and not only ancient art, not only modern art, but contemporary art. This is also very important. And at the same time, they present themselves with high technology, and in this case, with advanced air mobility, which is something that, if you talk about advanced air mobility, it means that you are a partner for innovation, and this is how Italy presents itself. I'm back from a very proficuous meeting which was held in Rome just 2 days ago, which is the Italy-Japan Business Group. At that time, I mean, this forum between Italy and Japan, it's an economic forum, and it involves very important Italian and Japanese industries, which range from aerospace to heavy industries, automotive, at the same time also, of course, agri-tech, agribusiness, and so on. And they were all curious about what Puglia was organizing here this week. So there is great attention to what we are doing. There is great attention to the subjects that you will address today. So I'm very happy to have been able to greet you and to welcome you here, and I'm looking forward to today's meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your wise words, and also of drawing parallels between how the Puglia region represents Italy in all facets of its life. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Munish Khurana. I work for Eurocontrol. For those of you who don't know, when you take a flight from, let's say, Milan to Paris, the air traffic control at Milan Airport and the air traffic control at Paris Airport look after the takeoff and the landing. But when you're in the air and you see lots of other planes in the air, hopefully you don't see them many when you're actually sitting and looking through the window, but I can tell you from the ground station, we see a lot of them. The bit in the middle between takeoff and landing is what we control from Eurocontrol in Brussels, centrally for the entire Europe. Therefore, it's very important for us to ensure that any new entrants, eVTOLs or small drones, when they get integrated in the airspace, they're integrated safely, efficiently, and seamlessly. Now, the aerospace and aviation industry itself is today being called upon, as His Excellency just highlighted, to play a key role in the transition towards a more sustainable future, sustainable society, by proposing some innovative solutions which are capable of environmental impact. And the idea is to use advanced air mobility to achieve this. In Europe, the European Union has defined a drone strategy 2.0 for smart and sustainable unmanned aircraft ecosystem. Now, this strategy promotes technological and industrial development to create a free and upcoming drone services market. The idea is to identify a set of services. We call them U-Space in Europe. In other parts of the world, it's called UTM. And the idea is to create infrastructure, both digital and physical infrastructure, to support the advanced air mobility. In this respect, Eurocontrol and JCAB, the Japanese Civil Aviation Organization, are very similar in trying to help and enable the industry and the various partners to create an ecosystem. Without that ecosystem, it won't work. And therefore, this forum today building a new ecosystem for advanced air mobility. We are here gathered today to try and have a debate on identifying key aspects of a roadmap we need for future. Any growth policies or indicators between Europe and Japan, and I take inspiration out of what Ambassador talked about, a meeting recently in Rome between the Japanese and the European counterparts to look for collaboration. And also we'll be here today to look at what possible projects we can identify for collaboration between the two regions. Now, one aspect of Puglia region, which I believe is the top initiative, is one in Grottaglia. Grottaglia is an area at the bottom of Puglia region, at the south of Puglia region, and the Grottaglia airport testbed is state-of-the-art testbed for research and testing infrastructure, is funded by the region of Puglia, and is currently being set up as an airport thanks to the commitment from a number of partners, but specifically from DTA, and that's represented today by Giuseppe Acciano. DTA is a technology aerospace cluster itself. Now, we would like very much that various partners within the industry as well as the university work together to create this infrastructure. During this forum, we will have debates and we will try to identify new plans, innovation ideas, and the readiness for Europe and Japan to collaborate. We will focus on the vehicle aspects, the physical infrastructure, the vertiport, the digital infrastructure, the UATM or Urban Air Traffic Management and UTM. We'll focus on the drone operations and, of course, most important of all of them, the society. We will look at operational aspects, technical, regulatory aspects, societal, and standards. Now, before I start my first panel, I would first like to take a little pause and actually invite Francesca to come up and to give a little gift to His Excellency for his contribution and support for the whole of this initiative. Please. Thank you.
Wonderful Puglia, it's true. Many of you probably know Puglia. We hope that many will visit Puglia. This is also the meaning of being here in Expo, is also to talk about and to widen the scope of the knowledge of Italy. This is one of the most beautiful regions of Italy, and I say it sincerely. I love Puglia, I love the Puglia people, and so this is the beginning, because to have a platform here for 6 months is an investment that we made, is an investment that the regions made, so we really count on the future. This is just the beginning, it's a platform, just like Grottaglie is a platform for the future, for an airport for the future, so is this pavilion. So we look forward to working together in the next few months. Thank you. Bye-bye. Grazie mille. Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you, Francesca. So let's move on with our plan today. So today, I'll be joined with experts and dignitaries from Europe as well as Japan. And roughly, you have the program with you, but I'll quickly go through it. After the introduction, now I will invite Giuseppe Acerno from DTA to make some opening remarks about the Grottaglia region and the Puglia region in general. We will then have our first panel, where we will showcase the Italian and the European capabilities and plan for advanced air mobility. This will be followed by a joint panel of the European and Italian delegates, where we look at the readiness of where both regions are in preparing the infrastructure, and then eventually identifying areas of collaboration, and then we will have conclusions. So may I call upon stage now Giuseppe Acerno from DTA to provide his opening remarks. Giuseppe.
So good morning, Mr. Commissioner. Good morning to everyone. And I'm Giuseppe Acerno. I'm President and Managing Director of the Apulian Aerospace Cluster, which gave support to the Apulian region, technical support in order to define the contents of this week, in particular 3 events that have characterized this week that is dedicated to the future of mobility. This is the 3rd event. We have already had 2 different events, 2 other events on Monday. The first one was dedicated to the future of the spaceport, in which we had the opportunity to host friends from United States, but in particular from Japan and from Italy, discussing about the future of the spaceports. And then we had in the evening another meeting regarding the space technologies, and in particular, again, we had the opportunity to host friends from different parts of the world, in particular from Japan, of course. This one is dedicated to advanced air mobility, as you heard, and there are 2 reasons that have driven us in approaching this event. It's something that has already been said by the Commissioner, what was our thought. First, we thought that it was useful to create a moment of exchange of information, how practices may be, think about possible collaboration. In a place like this, giving you the opportunity to compare your approach to topics that have extraordinary, enormous impact on the, let's say, on the movement that the aerospace is doing in this transformation, and advanced air mobility is one of them. From another point of view, we try to be in this debate, speaking about what we have done in these years in Apulia region, according to the fact that, in particular, in advanced air mobility, we think that we moved pioneering what was happening, because already in 2014, we were able to engage with the European Commission, the opportunity to create which one is the first national infrastructure dedicated to research in Italy and to research regarding advanced air mobility. This is an opportunity for us, for listening the advance in this area by the Japanese organization, but it's also an opportunity to think about possible collaboration. And I would say that maybe what's happening in Europe is not only is something unique or particular. You are involved in the new era of aerospace, as we are, and I think you have the similar approach. We do believe that is an opportunity, not only a technical opportunity, of course, it's an opportunity to introduce technology that impact on the life of the people, and so that we think that at the beginning of this long path that will drive us to the use of these technologies, we will have also an enormous impact on the services that can be delivered, so on the quality of the services for the people, and I would say also for the richness of each one is involved in this sector. So the aim is to go ahead. Thank you, Munish, which you, and I would also say thank you to Giancarlo Ferrara, which is in the audience, our friends from Eurocontrol that gave us the opportunity to enrich this moment, and I will wait my panel to have something which is not an introduction, but an explanation on how Apulia thinks that can be a pivot in this cooperation, and this is our approach, Commissioner, starting from tomorrow to use these 3 events not like only an exchange, but as the first step of path in which we are really interested in reinforce our cooperation with the Japanese friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Very wise words. And I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not from Puglia or Italy, but I get inspired by this region. I go there to work with fellows, with colleagues over there. It really is wonderful, wonderful, not just in art and society, but also technology and innovation. Right. I think it's time to move on to our first panel. In the first panel, we are going to be showcasing the Italian and European capabilities and their plans in advanced air mobility domain. In this panel, we have some members who are available and present here in person, and some members will be joining us online, both from Italy as well as some from Tokyo. And therefore, may I first call upon stage the members who are present here in person. Alberto Lovino from D-Flight and ENAV. So if you would like to take a seat, please, Alberto. Alberto wears two hats. He's from the ANSP, the Air Navigation Service Center of Italy, as well as from D-Flight, which is the UTM, the first European certified USSP, which is the UTM service provider. We're very proud of D-Flight in this case. D-Flight and Italy in this case is showing Europe the future, the way, leading the way, and others will follow. May I also call upon stage from Skyport, Masashi Teruta. Masashi is the business development manager who is representing Japan, but he will be talking, please, on the stage. And Masashi will be representing Skyports. Skyports are working on various vertiport projects throughout Europe itself. And on the via Teams link, virtually, we have with us today Carmela Tripaldi from ENAC, which is the Italian CAA. Carmela, are you with us?
Hello.
Hi, Carmela, welcome. Thank you for waking up so early in the morning in Italy.
Very early.
We're very delighted and pleased and thankful to you for your passion. Thank you very much. So stand by, please. May I also invite now Carlo Tursi. Carlo is the CEO of UrbanV. Carlo, are you with us?
I am. Good morning, everyone.
Carlo, thank you very much. Carlo is joining us from Dubai. UrbanV is also working on vertiport projects in Dubai. So, Carlo, we're very delighted that you could make it. So, thanks for joining in. Let's move on to the next one. May I also invite now, who's joining us remotely from Tokyo, is Jenny Harcourt. And Jenny is from Vertical Aerospace, based in the United Kingdom. And they are providing eVTOLs, not just in Europe itself, but also here in Tokyo. Jenny, welcome to the forum. Are you with us?
Thank you. I am with you.
We see you. We see you on the screen. Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for being here. Okay. So the way we're going to work in this panel for the next 40 minutes is that I will ask each of the 5 panelists in a certain order questions. They will answer the questions that I ask for the next half an hour. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we then have a Q&A for all of you. You can ask any questions. We will give you about 10 minutes, roughly, to ask questions. But please feel free to raise your hand, and I will look out for you to ask your questions. Let's first start with Carmela. Carmela Tripaldi has joined us from Rome. She works for ENAC and is a senior director there. Carmela, give us a sense of the demand for urban air mobility in Italy, particularly, and generally across Europe. And when you do that, could you give us and our audience a sense of how the Italian regulator is supporting the creation of the ecosystem for advanced air mobility in Italy? Please, over to you, Carmela.
Thank you very much for inviting ENAC in this contest, and I would like to share with you our vision. The demand for advanced air mobility in Italy and Europe is significant enough that various sectors of business are already using drones in a variety of ways, and some startups are designing innovative aircraft as well as VTOL, vertical capable aircraft. Technologies are changing mobility both on the ground and in the air for moving goods, people, and now aerial services, which will increase, we hope, the overall accessibility of the territory and we hope the quality of the life. The regulator challenges how to keep up the new role of an authority. This is the approach of ENAC to enable sustainable, secure, and inclusive ecosystem, open to integration, innovation, which promotes technology, protects rights, ensures security, and understands people needs. In Italy, the path to advanced air mobility started in 2019 and it is continuing. In 2021, we published a strategic plan. Our vision for advanced air mobility is a safe, secure, sustainable multi-domain transportation where the main drivers are ecological and digital mobility. Thanks to this strategy, the third dimension should be included in an intermodal and innovative transportation network of services that see mobility as a services, not more as a product, to benefit the citizen. We identify four main applications: air taxi, medical and good delivery, inspection mapping, and agricultural support. It's clear that advanced air mobility cannot happen without public acceptance and involvement of territories. Consequently, ENAC, the Italian Civil Aviation, has established alliance with key regions, cities, aerodrome operators, and air navigation service provider. And most important, we have launched pilot projects in Sandbox too. At the same time, the European Commission has published, as you already said, the Drone Strategy 2.0, which seeks to make the drone industry an economic vector for Europe, and issued a regulatory framework for innovative service, which include the operation of unmanned aircraft and manned vertical capital aircraft, a new aircraft category. Called VTOL in the rest in the world. In 2024, ENAC adopted its own regulatory framework to complement the European one. It consists in one regulation which contains national requirements for vertical capable aircraft operations and another one sandbox regulation which is useful for developing new technologies in safe test environments, opening a dialogue with the authorities. We are improving the cooperation among European authorities and ICAO. The most innovative aspects are new types of aircraft, flight operations, flight license. They use in the urban context for the first time. The third dimension is in the urban context in the city. A dedicated set of digital services we need, and we called it U-Space in Europe. High-speed digitalization is a challenging and integration with the traditional air traffic. As I said, we have launched some pilot projects. The idea is to demonstrate the benefits that can be obtained from advanced air mobility in passenger transportation and other applications with drones, in particular healthcare, delivery, and emergency services. The first step to phase in our main pilot projects were focused on social acceptance by way of extremely remote operations, managing ticketing, passenger baggage transfer, and security measure. For this, we start with a sandbox in Pianabella, close to Fiumicino Airport, with Urban Bee and airport of Rome partnership. And Europe, and the first step is to face this big project. Making the process as simple as possible is necessary considering that digitalization is already an expected standard. Therefore, all the relevant risks have to be considered. Cybersecurity remains a constant challenge. for authorities and for industry. Europe is actively working regulation and policies to address these challenges, but funding constraints have affected European manufacturers, startups, and consequently the enabling of advanced air mobility continues to be slow for manned aircraft called VTOL. For the rest of the industry, we have a very big increase in applications. Meanwhile, in the UAE, the VTOL industry is rapidly growing due to strong investment funding support. And so, just for a last consideration is that we need to harmonize regulation framework in order to enable industry and global the difference which can affect global advanced air mobility deployment, because manufacturer must navigate dual and different certification process when entering in different markets. In conclusion, for Italy, harmonization has to be considered the key to enabling these new systems globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmela. Thank you very much. Thank you for setting the scene and also highlighting the positive role ENAC as a regulator is playing to enable the creation of ecosystem for advanced air mobility. So let's now move from regulations to operations. Let's get a sense of how operations are being managed today between manned and unmanned aviation. And to talk us about that, I'd like to ask Alberto. Alberto, could you give us a sense of the status of unmanned traffic management, UTM system, in managing manned and unmanned traffic in Italy? As UTM service provider yourselves, and also representing two hats as an ANSP and a service provider, how does D-Flight work with the ANSP to manage this unmanned traffic? Over to you, Alberto.
Thank you, Manish. First of all, allow me to thank Regione Puglia as well for the kind invitation. It is really nice to be here and part of this relevant and a significant event. It's our pleasure indeed. We work a lot with Puglia and with the DTA, the Distretto Tecnologico Aerospaziale, and we're really part of a system that moves towards the same goal, which is a nice feeling to be part of. Indeed, Monish, thank you very much for your kind words about our certification. ENAV Group, as you mentioned, encompasses ENAV, which is the Italian air navigation service provider, so conventional, so to say, ADM. Also D-Flight, which is the UTM, U-Space service provider, and as you mentioned, we've been the first organization to get both these certifications, Common Information Service Provision and U-Space service provision in Europe. We are very, very proud of that, and also please allow me to say we're very glad about that, because in Europe we do have a very consistent and comprehensive regulatory framework on advanced air mobility, U-Space, UTM, but we are also aware of the fact that this is just the starting point. This regulatory framework must evolve. And we're definitely convinced that the only way to progress further from where we are is by moving from theory to practice. We really felt like it was time to establish U-Space airspaces, start applying the rules, providing services, enabling operations, and learning, acquiring experience and knowledge. So we're really glad about that. Coming to your question, just one more thing about ENAV Group. It also encompasses TechnoSky, which is our maintenance company, and they're also a UAS operator. It encompasses IDS AirNav, which develops software. And D-Flight itself is a partnership. So within D-Flight, we have ENAV and Leonardo. So we also have the industry on board. So altogether, we are in a kind of unique position because we do have all the various souls of the business. We can really look at the issue from a 360 degrees perspective, which is really, really nice. So indeed, being part of the same holding, INAV and IFLIGHT, makes things quite easier. There are well-established communication channel, data exchange, procedural sharing and exchange. So it's easy. We do exchange any sort of data which is required for U-Space, and also for what we still call UTM, which is services enabling drone operations outside U-Space, because U-Space is starting in Europe, where we don't have big airspace volumes designated as U-Space yet. So drones operate a lot outside U-Space while we are speaking, and we help them to do it safely and efficiently. Let me also add that we also share people, which is a great added value. And we actually established most probably the first ops room, UTM ops room ever, which is what we call the Innovative Air Mobility Coordination Center. And this is co-located with the central briefing office in Rome, which means that we have an ops room where the same people are trained to operate, providing services to both manned and unmanned traffic. Colleague working there might be answering a phone, talking to a pilot, and then the next phone call will be with a control tower, and then the next phone call will be with a US operator. And they're basically acting right now as the interface between US operators and control towers to allow unmanned operations in the vicinity of airports. They will be the dynamic airspace reconfiguration manager when more U-Space airspace volumes will be established in controlled airspace. So we strongly believe in this kind of synergies, and it works. We're fully aware that there is still a lot to do, but we do also believe that we are starting from the right point.
Thank you, Alberto. You've covered a lot there, really. I think what you've highlighted here really is the first step, as you highlighted earlier, to say this is the initial step where you have a coordination cell consisting, which is manned coordination cell in the ops room itself. As the traffic increases, as the complexity becomes more and more, we expect, of course, the role of humans will be virtually none or very, very little, and that operations will be digital. But I think it's a step-by-step mechanism. That's your mantra.
Yeah, if I may, you're 100% right. As I mentioned before, we are fully aware that U-Space and UTM in general is going to be a highly automated environment, much more than what a conventional ATM is, even if technology is very important in ATM, but it's still human-centric. The air traffic controller is still the key figure there. This is not going to be the case in perspective, but to get there, we must enable more and more US operations, and we must enable higher and higher knowledge and skills in our people to put them down into the platforms. So actually, yes, this is a step that we're going through in order to move to the final goal, to something which is enabling high density, mixed and integrated manned and unmanned operations.
Wonderful. And I'd also like to use your phrase, if I can. I think you said, learn by doing, rather than just theorizing all the time. Learn, do it, improve it, and learn more. Let's move on now from digital infrastructure to physical infrastructure. Let's bring in Carlo Tursi, who's currently joined us from Dubai. Carlo, could you tell us where Italy is when it comes to development of vertiports and being operationally ready for advanced air mobilities? Italy and rest of Europe, because you're busy everywhere. So give us a sense, and then I'll come to Masashi to ask from his perspective. Over to you, Carlo.
Sure, thank you, Munish, and good morning, everyone. And again, thank you to Regione Puglia for the kind invitation to today's event. So, first of all, a word about Urban V so that everyone is on the same page. So we are a vertiport management company based in Italy. We are backed by 4 airport management companies, Italian and French, Aeroporti di Roma being our main shareholder. We are based in Rome. And we do have activities in different parts of the world, including the UAE, where I currently am, Saudi Arabia, as well as the United States, Latin America, and other places also in Asia, including Japan. When it comes to Italy, we have been working from the very beginning very closely with ENAC and ENAV, who are represented on this panel, on bringing advanced air mobility to Italy as one of the early markets for the development of this sector. For many parts, in a way, I could say that we are ready, or we're almost ready. As a matter of fact, Alberto just spoke about learning by doing, and we have tried to be very true to that. And as Carmela mentioned earlier, about 3 years ago now, in October 2022, we inaugurated our test vertiport, which we called UV0, Urban V0, our test vertiport at Fiumicino Airport in a location called Pianabella. We are well into the domain of Rome Airport's airspace, which happens to be the busiest airspace in Italy in terms of air traffic that you have in that area. And we intentionally placed that test vertiport in such a complex environment, in such a complex airspace, to be able to try and simulate sort of real world situation in a more complex setting, more complex environment, in order for us and for all the ecosystem stakeholders to be ready, or to get ready for the arrival of advanced air mobility. We have been operating that test vertiport ever since. That has been certified as a regulatory sandbox by ENAC, and we have flown both eVTOL and drones, lots of drones in the area, sort of gradually pushing the boundaries of what can be done in terms of integrating in a safe, clearly manner the operation of drones or vertical takeoff and landing aircraft without interfering or affecting in any way, obviously, the existing operation of a BZ3 runway system, which is Fiumicino Airport, Rome Fiumicino Airport. So learning by doing has been key, and a lot of the learnings that we have sort of gathered over the years at our test sandbox have been applied then in a number of processes and systems that we have developed and procedures that we have developed, both for Italy and for other markets where we operate. In fact, also thanks to that experience, Urban V was recently awarded also by the Brazilian Civil Aviation Authority, ANAC, a project to support them in the development of a similar regulatory sandbox to be based in Sao Paulo in Campo de Marte Airport. So we are very much of the idea that learning by doing is crucial, that there is no substitute for doing things in practice in the real world and testing and pushing the boundaries. Now, we are getting ready to for operations in a number of markets. When it comes to Europe, it is a fact that today we do not have, some of the earlier type certifications expected for eVTOL worldwide are not will not come to Europe initially. It will take probably a couple more years compared to other markets such as the United Arab Emirates or the US, which at the moment seem to be home to some of the earlier eVTOL commercial operations because of the type certification processes that are taking place with the respective authorities over there. Having said that, the environment and the market in Europe and in Italy specifically is very ripe for this kind of applications. We have been working on developing vertiport networks together with our partners and shareholders in several regions in Italy, not only in Rome, but also in the Venice region, in the Bologna region. And together with DTA and with Giuseppe's team, we have conducted studies on the integration of advanced air mobility and innovative air mobility services in the Puglia region as well, in particular with a particular focus on the city of Bari. And we do see a lot of potential. The market demand is there for a number of reasons. The demand for mobility is very high. We have local demand, we have high tourism in a number of those regions. The alternatives, the road-based or water-based alternatives are not always the most efficient out there. And as a consequence, the market is ripe. And in a number of these places, of these regions, as Urban V, we have already identified and secured, in most cases, the locations for future vertiports. We have also started designing vertiports for a number of those locations. So we have a pretty clear view of how operations will look like and how at least we will start and roll out infrastructure over the next few years. Obviously, for that, having certified eVTOL aircraft will be crucial. And at present, we see the next 2 to 3 years as fundamental in the process of ensuring that globally reputable eVTOL manufacturers will be able to also bring their eVTOL to Europe. And so let me echo again what Carmela already mentioned in terms of harmonizations of requirements and regulations. This is fundamental from our standpoint to make sure that the European market can be open to non-European OEMs and vice versa, that European OEMs will be able to easily and safely bring their aircraft to other international markets as well. So we're here, we're ready, we're operating globally, but we see a lot of demand and a lot of opportunity in Europe and in Italy specifically. So hopefully soon we will start also see. We have been operating, in experimental flights in Rome at our test vertiport at our regulatory sandbox for quite a while. And we hope to see commercial operations very soon as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. I think you've given us a good cross-section of where Urban V is working on, areas that you're focusing on. In one sentence, if I could ask you, when do you think, just give me your best guess for when the first operational vertiport will be launched in Italy? If you had to pick a date, what would that be? Not exactly, but let's say the month or the year.
It's really up to the OEMs and to eVTOL certification, but I believe that 2027 might be a good target date for commercial operations, like with paying passengers flying on board eVTOL. So that window between 2027 and 2028 is the time where we expect at present, to have the ability to scale, to launch and scale operations of commercial eVTOL flight. Yeah. There might be early operations even in 2026, but if that happens at present, my guess is that would be on a much smaller scale.
Thank you, Carlo. Let's bring you in, Masashi, now from Skyports. Do you see, let's say from a schedule point of view, do you see Skyports, because you're involved again in so many countries, Japan, Middle East, Asia, United States, South America, everywhere. Where do you see the first commercial certified vertiport to be launched? What's your view?
Yes, thank you, Munish. First of all, I'd like to show appreciation to having this time to be able to be here. It's a great honor to have us. Just to give the audience a little bit more of a background of what we do, I think Munish can give a great summary in a nutshell. But we've been not operating, but we are a vertiport operator and also a developer as well. And also, we also do provide drone services all over the world as well. From our company perspective, in terms of vertiports, we started back in 2019 building the very first test bed in Singapore along with Volocopter. And then after that, we also worked again with Volocopter and having a port in Cergy-Pontoise in France in 2022. And I think those are two significant use cases that we had an actual aircraft fly. Of course, a test aircraft, and then to show the capabilities of what an eVTOL can do, along with what kind of vertiport operations needed to kind of sustain those kind of operations. And then of course we have opened a new test bed in Bicester in the UK, and then I think one of the most exciting projects that they're working on right now, unfortunately it's outside of Europe, but we are currently building a vertiport in Dubai right now, along with Joby and RTA, which is the Dubai Transport Authority. And I think from the past experiences that we had with Volocopter and having a test bed in UK, that kind of gives us the experience of an idea of how we can operate these new technologies and implementing them into this new sector. And I think, this is also a learning experience for us and everybody, right? And I think, Carlo also summarized it very well. We need to have those aircrafts flying with the type certification. And then, once those aircrafts are flying, then we're able to officially start the operations of the vertiports. And I think the preparation that we have been putting into investing into test beds, we're also building our own original software to sustain those operations so that it becomes more efficient. And of course, operating a vertiport takes a lot of costs, and we want to kind of make it more effectively to use those technologies to reduce those costs to have more efficient and sustainable operations of the vertiports. So when it comes all to that, we put those all together. I think to answer your question, Manish, I think one of the first commercial vertiports that we're aiming to launch is actually in Dubai right now, and that's a good example of how the authorities and the government and private companies like us come together to kind of work on a really big project to make this into reality. So this is very exciting. We have already started construction in a couple months ago in Dubai. We hope to kind of finish that construction by end of the year this year, if it goes all to plan. And then of course comes the certification of course the vertiport and also the aircraft, which will be operating next year. So hopefully we will be able to start operations early next year. And yeah, I think that'll be the world for us, and I think it's a great privilege for us to kind of showcase what we have been learning in the past 5-6 years to kind of put that into operations.
Yeah, that's exciting, really. So as you said, the first time we will see a certified airport, vertiport, and commercial operations is likely to be next year, and that's not very far. And whilst that's happening in one region, Dubai, it'll be a start of a learning for many, many, many others. One of the things, which takes me to the next question, both to you and Carlo, is I'm always interested to learn both sides. What drives the completion or achievement of milestones? Is it the overall strategy of the country, the vision? For example, if you take Dubai as a region itself, their vision that they fixed a date, 2026. That's it. Everybody works to that goal. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to do it bottom up, to get everything ready, make sure the maturity is all there, and then to define where to go. And I think in Europe we are probably a little bit more on the second type, as such, if you like. But what I'd like to learn from you and from Carlo here would be, what are the challenges that you guys have faced or are facing to get to that stage? No doubt one of which being the leadership one, but give us a sense of challenges from acceptance from the public, operational, technical, funding. I mean, one of the biggest challenges, of course, is funding. And if you can, I know it's a loaded question, if you can, we often talk about integration with aviation for vertiports, integration with other airports. But often we forget about a very, very important and critical element. Is there sufficient energy available to run a vertiport itself? I'll start with you, Masashi, and then I'll go to Carlo. Over to you.
Yeah. it's a big question.
It is a big
I would say,
question.
very complicated. To make things short, I think it's a little bit of everything, right? So regulatory, technology, funding, as you mentioned. I think one of the difficulties for us right now, being a UK company and trying to deploy these ports around Europe, is that EASA has their own regulations. They have ratified the prototype technical specifications back in 2022, and vice versa. UKCA is kind of still in a working progress right now to get those regulations in place. So whenever we built a port, once we did it in Cergy, in Pontoise, it was more that we kind of go with the EASA regulations because they already had the prototype already. But when we opened the new port in Bicester in the UK, we need to kind of go by the current regulations that the UKCA has.
Yeah.
So focusing on the regulatory side of things, once those new regulations kick in from the UKCAA, which hopefully comes soon, and there are discussions that UKCAA kind of harmonizes with the EASA regulations for certified inverted ports, that kind of changes things for us. So we already have a port still test bed, non-operational yet, but when we have those commercial operations, then we need to kind of make regards to those new regulations that come in. I think it's not just for EASA, not only for UK, same in Japan, and Dubai as well. So when those changes come in, we need to kind of modify. That's why we have like modular concepts to be able to have a more agnostic structure for the vertiports, and once we are in guidance of those regulations, and I think those become more of a operational stage. And I think regulatory things always takes time, and since we are a startup, we can't wait for all those things to kind of get together.
It is a fine balance between trying to keep your investors still with you and at the same time also complying with the regulatory framework itself as such. Carlo, maybe I'll come back to you and then we'll move to Jenny. Carlo, do you see any challenges, specific challenges that you've faced over and above what Masashi has just talked about? Anything else you can share with us?
Sure. Look, Masashi gave a pretty good view, in my opinion. And obviously, there are technical challenges, but those can be solved and have been solved for the most part. There are regulatory challenges, and from a regulatory point of view, what you would like in an ideal world is clarity, first of all. And actually, in Italy and in Europe, we are lucky to have quite a bit of clarity on regulations for the operation of this aircraft. And then, ideally, you would like to have regulations that are as homogeneous as possible across different markets, across different countries and geographies. Then there are other type of challenges. If I look at some of the reasons why, for example, a market like the UAE is making fast progress and fast strides on bringing advanced air mobility to market, clearly there has been in the UAE a very strong commitment and support from the government, which is not something that we have necessarily seen, or not to the same extent, at least in other markets, especially in Europe and in Italy, I would say. So having, strong government support is important. Having access to funding is equally important. We have had some virtuous examples of funded projects and funded developments in a number of markets, also in Europe, and not necessarily as much in Italy, I would say. And then there are also other types of challenges. For example, one of the issues that we often face in very different markets, bringing this very new type of infrastructure that is called vertiports to cities, is an issue which is not exactly regulatory, or at least it's regulatory but from a different point of view, which is permitting. So when it comes to urban planning and dealing with cities, what is a vertiport? You know, a lot of cities ask us this question, you know, what is a vertiport? How should we look at it? You know, there is no, you know, urban planning processes of most cities around the world does not necessarily define vertiports, does not consider vertiports. And so we have been working with a number of local governments, regional governments, municipalities, counties in the US to support them in the process of understanding what a vertiport is, how it operates, how it is different from airports or from heliports, you know, that typically tend to be the closest analogies, and how it can be safely and conveniently integrated with you know the existing texture of large and smaller cities around the world, and therefore also from a zoning and permitting point of view, how it should be viewed, how it should be treated. Having clarity on that aspect is fundamental as well for a company developing our business, but I would argue for the entire industry, because you know in order for advanced air mobility to become that service that we envision, that is very, you know, convenient and desirable by consumers, you will want to have vertiports not only at existing, you know, airports or heliports, but also within cities, in places where people actually want to go and close to their final destinations, which might be the business districts, which might be tourism destinations, which might be you know, residential areas where people want to eventually get with their eVTOL flights.
Thank you, Carlo. So we've spoken so far about the UTM system, so digital infrastructure. We've spoken about the physical infrastructure. Now it's time to talk about the actual aircraft as well. This is where I bring in Jenny. Jenny, from Vertical Aerospace, could you give us a sense of what the roadmap is for certification of eVTOLs by Vertical Aerospace, and whereabouts are you on that roadmap, please?
Sure. If I may just give a brief introduction around Vertical as well, and firstly to say thank you for the invitation to attend today. Good morning, Mr. Commissioner, and to everyone. So Vertical is a British-based engineering company where we're designing and manufacturing an electric eVTOL. And we will be targeting type certification in 2028 under SC VTOL with the CAA and EASA. And I should point out at this point as well that the aircraft that we're developing is piloted and intended to carry 4 passengers. We've seen strong demand for the aircraft, so we have a strong order book of over 1,500 aircraft across the 3 regions, Asia being a strong adopter, Europe, and of course also the United States. I should point out as well that we are also designing and manufacturing our own battery packs for the aircraft, and then collaborating strongly with aerospace partners, one of whom being Leonardo. We've recently also announced the intent to bring a hybrid variant to market, and that is a very brief summary of Vertical. Where are we then on the flight testing and the path to certification? So we have a full-scale piloted demonstrator, which we refer to as Aircraft 2. And Aircraft 2 has completed the first phase of flight test, which is the thrust-borne phase. We will shortly be moving into the wing-borne, and then with the aim to complete full transition this year. And that is with a pilot on board, which would position us as one of the few eVTOL companies to have achieved that milestone. All of that we are doing in collaboration with the CAA to receive our permits to fly. And that is paving us in very good position, both ourselves and the CAA, to really learn and hone the requirements to demonstrate compliance to the SC VTOL standard. We're working closely with the CAA, as I mentioned, and also EASA for a common basis of certification, which has been mentioned by a number of the panelists already. And that is really fundamental for us to be able to achieve the certification and then commercialize the aircraft globally, is to have the harmonized standards. The aircraft that I mentioned, Aircraft 2, has a fuselage and pylon that was supplied and manufactured by Leonardo in Britalia. So a thank you to the Pula region and especially to Gritalia for that product that they've produced for us. I think that the region has got really good potential for the eVTOL, especially for me. I want to take the Bari to Gritalia route so that I can visit my friends and colleagues in Leonardo. And with that, I'll pass back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much. I'll open the floor in a minute, ladies and gentlemen, so do have your question ready. But I've got one more question for Jenny before I do that. Jenny, since you are involved in the whole supply chain aspects of vertical aerospace, and indeed, for those of us who've been involved in aviation, we do understand the long and the diverse supply chain needed to manufacture an aircraft. How mature is this supply chain? Because we are doing all this the first time. And when I say we, I mean the whole ecosystem. Everyone's doing it the first time. How mature is this supply chain today? And how can that be accelerated to create scalability of manufacturing these aircraft in future, please?
So I would consider the supply chain to be pretty mature.
Yeah.
You take, for example, the aerostructures, and there are many companies who can produce very high quality at rate composite aerostructures, and as I mentioned, Leonardo being one of those companies. Where you have the new and novel technology, yes, there is a journey to go on there, and Vertical Aerospace has chosen to bring in-house and design and manufacture assemble the battery pack ourselves. So we see that as a means to de-risking the route to certification and also the mass production. So I feel pretty comfortable about the maturity of the supply chain. I think that if I may just touch on one point that was mentioned by Carlo as well, is around the state funding and support for R&D. And that's not only to foster the whole ecosystem that's required to operate the eVTOL, but from my perspective, really to drive and foster the aerospace innovation for both the R&D side of things, but also for the operations. We see a very healthy demand and strong forecast for the aircraft, and so the potential for high rate manufacture is very strong, and that though requires capital intense investment for the equipment to be able to hit the high rates. So that is an area that I would suggest is something that we should look closely at and talk together as an industry consortium.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks very much for your wise words. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to open the floor. Are there any questions from the audience that you wish to ask? Yes, sir. Maybe you could introduce yourself. Could we provide this microphone to the gentleman? Maybe just your name and your company. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish, and thank you so much for the wonderful session on both the digital and physical infrastructure for drones and IAM. This is Yuki from Terradrone and also from Unifly. I've understood that Europe is, of course, leading this innovation while, of course, enhancing safety along the way. And Italy, particularly standing out, being the first among neighboring member states to have both CIS and USS certified by its national authority. That is wonderful. While leaning slightly towards the digital layer, as Europe and Japan both accelerate the development of infrastructure, what do you see as the most impactful areas to harmonize between these two different regions? For instance, is it data architecture or interface standards or system interoperability? I believe this is important to enable global harmonization for scalability of safely integrated operations. What is your kind of ideas that would pop out?
Thank you, Yuki. I think it's a very good question, and also a question that sits not just in one country or region. It's actually almost global question. But let me start with you, Alberto. I think it's probably best to start with you, and we'll bring in other people.
Yeah, thank you, Manish, and thank you, Yuki, for the question. Of course, that's a crucial part of the story. You mentioned, Monish, before that, what we learned today, expectations to have the first vertiports active in quite a short time is amazing. At the same time, we heard about the fact that those who are invested money in this new business are concerned about the pace, the speed of the whole system, and sometimes they feel like we're going too slow. And of course, this is understandable, fully understandable from the point of view. But overall, we're convinced that we are aware of the fact that under this headline, advanced air mobility, it is a revolution we're talking about. Because in perspective, what we're dealing with is not just a small change in the way we do things, but is moving surface mobility up into the third dimension. And this is actually something, it's a world-changing thing. And although nowadays times of change are much faster than what they used to be in the past, still such a big revolution takes some time. We are not going that slow, in our opinion. We're fully convinced of that. So indeed, we have to address technical issues. Interoperability is crucial. Us, from our perspective, as we are part of the European Union, we do have to stick to European standards, but at the same time, INAV is also active on what we call the third market, so we're also dealing with market in other countries, so we're able to switch to different standards and protocols and APIs, communication data exchange, solutions which might be different from what we have in Europe. But once again, please allow me to stress, just to conclude my answer, we are fully aware that what we are aiming at the end is a fully integrated mixed operations system. We will still have manned aircraft in the air. We will progressively have more unmanned aircraft in the air. We will have different kind of manned and unmanned aircraft, like eVTOL, which might have a pilot on board or might not. And we are aiming to have a system which allows all this mixed traffic to live together in high figures. But we're fully aware that this is something that is going to happen step by step. It's not like happening tomorrow all of a sudden. And Carlo was mentioning the existence of an actual market, which he is right, is already there. Yeah. But we're also fully aware that there is a huge potential market. And we will allow this potential market to come up to the surface if we move step by step by providing the adequate level of services, enabling this market to come to the surface. So whomever is ready to operate now must be allowed to operate now. And by doing this, we will have other operators, other industries coming up and doing the same. So synergies are definitely available. They have to happen. We do understand that there is a lot of commonalities that we have between Japan and Italy, and there's definitely somewhere we have to progress. Somewhere we have to progress together, because we're all on the same goal.
So, thank you, Alberto. I would also like to bring in Carmela here, because Yuki's question goes into harmonizing standards as well. And Carmela, you wear so many hats, not just Italian hat, but also a global hat, being member of the ICAO Advanced Air Mobility Study Group itself. How important do you think this harmonizing standards is, and what are the challenges we face, to answer Yuki? We don't have the volume. Just hang on a minute. You may be muted. Yeah,
thank you very much.
We hear you.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Thank you very much for this question. As I already said, I think that is very important. This is the key, because in this moment we are in a critical point. industry is pressing. We are a lot of startups, a lot of interesting in territories, in governments, and so the responsibility of the authorities and the ICAO too is to put in place a vision, a common vision, in order to address the system for the future development. And in this case, standards, common standards, and harmonization in principle, in the principle of regulation are very important because, for example, we are learning by doing, because in Europe we have a very complete framework, but in reality we have a good regulation, a better regulation, but we need to put in place, and we need to implement it. And so one of the important aspects are interoperability and standard. So as you already mentioned, we are working a lot in ICAO under the Advanced Air Mobility Study Group in order to provide a vision for the future work of ICAO. For developing a set of standard, a common standard that can be used, can be implemented by all states, all member states. I think that this is the real challenge, because technology is coming, certification will come, but we need to give the possibility to the manufacturer, to the industry, to open the market.
Yeah.
Because the risk is that advanced air mobility remain a regional technology, a regional new mobility. In order to implement worldwide, we need to be more cooperative as authorities. Just an example is the different approach from FAA and EASA in VTOL certification. This different approach, different rules can provide some difficulties in manufacture, in open the market. This is very important. The different the consideration regarding the difference between FAA and the EASA regulation frameworks will affect global advanced air mobility deployment, because FAA and EASA are very strong, has very strong framework. And so, for example, in Italy, we develop a complete regulation framework. We complete a European framework with a national rule for dedicated routes for VTOL and for and requirements for building and for designing vertiport. But without for example, without the certified products, and we are waiting for Volocopter that should be the first in Europe. But without manufacturer and certified products, we can have some difficulty in achieve some goals in early time. That's my opinion.
No, thank you.
And so we are work very strong in ICAO about that.
Thank you. I think these are very wise words, no doubt. I think we need this global harmonization. Without that, we only make life difficult for all the partners of this ecosystem, and the bar becomes even higher and higher and higher, and that's not good for anyone. I think we're getting very close to the end of this panel. Are there any other questions from the audience before we sum up? Okay, thank you. Then allow me just to sum up this panel. Thank you very much to my panelists, both online as well as present here in person. In this panel, with the help of our experts, we uncovered and discussed a number of things. We discovered how important public acceptance is and how important it is to engage with the stakeholders. We also, with the help of Carmela, understood and appreciated the role of regulatory sandboxes. And no doubt in Italy, we have sandboxes near the Rome airport, but also down in Grottaglie as well. I think I like the phrase that Carmela used, keep the process simple. If you want it to be implemented, keep it simple, which is very wise words. And particularly like Alberto, your idea that we need to move from theory to practice. So we need to fly, we need to learn, we need to improve. And that's the way to move forward. Carlo and Masashi, thank you both of you for sharing your thoughts. And you highlighted how important it is to have a strong government support in creating an ecosystem of physical infrastructure, which is so capital intensive. So there's a lot of finance that's going in there, and therefore having the government support is important to de-risk this highly capital expenditure industry itself. Both of you, yourselves and Carlo, highlighted the importance of clarity for regulatory challenges. It's very important to seek that clarity. If there's no clarity, then I think, again, in a capital-intensive industry like the physical infrastructure, vertiports, it becomes even more difficult. Jenny highlighted very adequately the role that an eVTOL manufacturer is playing, and they're looking for type certification in 2028. What I like about all of you, what you've mentioned, is that the demand is there. I hope you've also heard, just about from every panelist, the demand is there. And I think there are two types, at least, the ones that I see. There's the demand that we know that exists today because people or industries have come forward and asked for it, whether it's medical or it's postage or it's through airlines and tourism and so on. But I'm of the belief that there's a lot of dormant demand that's just waiting to come up. They're looking at the regulations, they're looking at the implementation of regulations, and as Carmela said, and so did Jenny as well, they're looking to get certifications done. Once the certifications are done for aircraft, for vertiports, and for service providers, this dormant demand that's just under the surface is going to come up. And I think we as an ecosystem, we need to be ready for it. And I think that is good. And we should be ready for it. And wise words from Jenny to say that at least the supply chain today is mature. And we need that maturity, because if it's mature today, when the traffic is still low, we need it to stay mature and available when we need to scale up the matters. I think with that, I'd like to thank you all very much. I'd like to thank my panelists for their time and have had the pleasure of talking to all of you. I hope you also enjoyed it. I would like to thank you all very much and move to the next panel. Thank you, Masashi. Thank you. Okay, so we're still on time, believe it or not. Interestingly, let's move on to the next panel. Now, in the next panel, we're going to open this conversation to beyond Europe, and we're going to start looking at what the situation looks like in Japan, with the help of our colleagues and partners from Japan as well as from Europe. And then we're going to try and compare if the strengths and weaknesses of both regions can help each other out. We're all in it for the same thing at the moment, and hopefully at the end of that panel identify some activities, some items from projects that we can collaborate. Again, in this panel we have a mix of people who are present here physically, as well as those who are joining us online. So let me first start with the online people to make sure that they are there and they don't have any problems. I will first call upon to see if Robin Riedel from McKinsey is available. Robin, are you with us? Oh, here you are. I see you on the screen.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for being here, Robin. All right. Now, we will also be joined once again by Carlo, and Carlo continues to stay, so we've tested his application already. May I call upon stage my Japanese colleagues, starting with Kotaro Yamamoto-san from JCAB. You're welcome, sir. Please. May I call on stage Noriyuko Hirayama-san from Project Riamo. Please. May I also call on stage Takanari Arai-san from NEC. May I call on stage Ryo Sugiyama-san from Oryx. May I call on stage Giuseppe Arciano from DTA to join us, please? And we have Carlo, who's already there. Carlo, are you still with us?
I am.
Ah, excellent. Great to hear. Great to hear. Thank you all for being here. We will use the next 45 to 50 minutes to try and compare Europe and Japan. So we will start with first asking Robin from McKinsey to give us a sense of where the global demand is across Europe, but not just Europe and Japan, across the entire globe. And Robin, when you share your views, please give us a sense of what the latest trends are. You are probably the best placed in today's forum because you have a wide cross-section view, a helicopter view. And where do you see the commercial advanced air mobility services, let's say, in the next 3 to 5 years? Over to you, Robin.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for hosting this fantastic event. And thank you for having me. And apologies, I couldn't be there in person today. Look, I think when it comes to demand for a nascent product, it's always an interesting question, right? We don't really have, the availability to fly. And so what we can talk about demand is really judging by what interest do we see from people, what do we hear from a stated preference perspective. And that interest is very strong. I think we have a broad range of use cases and excitement, from operators, whether that's airlines, whether that's business jet operators, whether that's traditional helicopter operators, or brand new operators in the market. We're seeing similar things from customers. We've done a number of surveys, and advanced air mobility services, whether that's on the drone side or on the eVTOL side, score quite well when it comes to desire by people to want to use them, not just for novelty, but for the benefit that they bring on saving times from moving across barriers, and from basically going to the third dimension in a sustainable way. And so in a way, where's demand today? I think there's a lot of latent demand, but as Carl and others pointed out, we don't really have commercial services quite yet on the eVTOL side, and so to be seen where that demand is going to come, and I'll talk about that in a second. The one area where we already have demand that is showing is on the commercial drone side. And I'm going to take a kind of global view to start with that, over the last year, we've had over 1 million drone deliveries that were paid for. So commercial drone deliveries. And that could be healthcare goods, for example, what Zipline has been doing in Africa, but it could also be, coffee or pizza, or ice cream in the domestic sense. It could be e-commerce goods to a degree. And so you see drone delivery starting up in, a few pilot areas and, doing so quite well. Just to give you a couple of numbers here, some of the operators that do report on this will say within the catchment area that they can actually serve, over 70% of the households that could order by drone have at least ordered by drone once by now. And so the pickup rate and the try out rate is really high. Similarly, the repeat rate is really high, over 40% for these players. So people that order once, actually come back and order again. And so all of those things are kind of encouraging points that, look, there's real demand for advanced air mobility, for commercial application. Now, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what the journey looks like and go into your question on trends. Right? We heard a little bit, the sobering news that, some of the European OEMs that many of us were betting on to kind of lead the way and kind of create some of these early operations didn't quite make it to the finish line. Yeah. And so I think within Europe, there is a bit of a, awakening that, okay, maybe, we have to think about slightly different. In Japan, of course, you still have a lot of engagement from, other OEMs, whether it's from North America or other parts, as well as the domestic Japanese OEMs. And so I think, as we look towards the next couple of years, I have no doubt that we'll see eVTOL services in Japan, but also in Europe. It's just a matter of where do the OEMs that are still out there kind of prioritize. And we heard a little bit earlier on the panel that they're flocking to places where regulation is clear, where there's public support, and a lot of that is the Middle East, and to a degree also North America. You probably saw today Archer announced they're going to be aiming to fly at the LA Olympics in 2 years as a big milestone. And so when we talk about the next 2 to 3 years, I think we'll see commercial eVTOL services, and I think we'll see the expansion of commercial drone services in most Western countries. And the shape that will take is not necessarily hundreds of aircraft flying dozens of routes. It will probably be a little bit subscale to start with, but it will be real enough that all of us who are on the call here today will get a chance to actually experience that, in my opinion, in the next 3 years. So that brings me to kind of the trends that we've seen over the last, call it, year. And I would say the biggest trend is what I would call a slow maturing of the industry. And that comes in a number of different areas. On technology, on regulation, on consolidation of funding or where the funding is flowing, on public support, all of those areas, and supply chain for that matter, are things that we're getting away from, early trials to actually scaling up and maturing. Just to give you an idea, I think on the regulatory side, not only do we have more clarity now on the regulation to certify the aircraft, but also how are we going to operate them, right? What are some of the pilot training requirements? What are the vertiport requirements? What are some of the operating requirements? All of that is becoming much clearer. And so similar in the other areas. So there's a slow maturing of an industry out of initial trials to something that can actually be commercial. I think the second thing I would point out, and this goes back to a little bit to demand, and we just heard it from our friends at Vertical, many players are rethinking battery only for the eVTOL side and think about hybrid. What to do with either hybrid or a hydrogen propulsion system that could extend the range. And that's because they're realizing that there's so much more demand if you have more range. Yes, intercity and urban air mobility is interesting and flying people over 30, 40 kilometers. But there's even more people who want to travel over 100 to 200 kilometers. And I think that is another trend we're seeing, is that the eVTOL players are truly thinking about expanding their range, expanding their market, which creates a whole different ecosystem again, and is a bit of a trend right now. I think the third trend we've already kind of touched on is the looking for launch markets. And we talked about how the Middle East is a launch market that many of them are looking to. And I do think it's time for other countries to really think about why that is happening and what it means for them. And I think, whether it's Europe or whether it's some of the other countries out there, there is a conscious decision to be made. Do you want to start, competing as an early launch market, or is it better to be a fast follow afterwards? I don't think the answer is very clear, very easy, but I think it is something that needs much more public discussion than we have today. And then the last trend, I would say, it's a bit of a controversial one, but when I look at technology coming out of China and I look at what the eVTOL players in China are doing and the drone players in China are doing, I do think there is a great geopolitical question to ask, which is, how does that compare to what we're doing in the Western world? And how do we think about where the funding is flowing, government support, supportive regulations, and where these vehicles ultimately will fly and how we create a market? And I think we've, in aerospace, not necessarily always taken China quite as serious from a Western perspective because some of the delays we've seen in COMAC and otherwise. But I do think, given what we've seen in electric vehicles, in batteries and other technologies, even in small drone technology, it's an important topic that we just need to talk about more on, how are these players performing? What are the technologies that are coming out of there? And what does that mean for our Western strategies? So I think in summary, we're headed towards commercial operations, both in the drone space and the eVTOL space. I think all of us will get a chance to fly these things in the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm looking forward to hearing from the other panelists on where things are headed.
Excellent. Thank you, Robin. I think you really covered a whole cross-section of where the demand is, and really, really excited to learn from you about the various trends. I must pause here and apologize because I forgot to bring another panelist on the stage who's sitting right here in front of me, because we need you to have the discussion. So, Alberto, would you like to join us again, please, in this one, because we will need to talk about the ANSP dimension from it. Of course you are. Of course you are. As you always know. So, please. Thank you, Alberto, please. Okay, so having had a view, a cross-section view from Robin about where the demand is, or where the latent demand is going to emerge from, let's now move to learning from our Japanese friends. So, Kotaro-san, if I may ask you, sir, where do you think, or what is the path forward for the widespread use of advanced air mobility in Japan, and what is the current status of the regulation, please, in Japan? Sir.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you for inviting me to this great opportunity. I'm very exciting. For the standpoint of Japanese regulator, I think the safety level of AAM is cannot be decreased compared to the conventional aircraft. However, the means of compliance or conformity can be not the same as conventional aircraft, and the solution to this is not predetermined, and there may be a lot of methods. So this opportunity is very helpful for me, because the information sharing or information exchange is very important. Yeah. And discussed previous session, there is no international common standard, but internationally cooperate each other is very important. So for your questions, I prepared a short presentation. So could you display the monitor? Okay.
Can we have the presentation, please?
Okay, please.
Okay.
Okay, next slide, please.
Maybe try to play the presentation.
Not this one.
Not this one. It's from JCAB.
Could you show me next slide?
We're just trying to get the presentation loaded very quickly. It's from Mr. Kotaro Yamamoto. The presentation is from Mr. Kotaro Yamamoto from JCAB.
Oh, thank you.
I think we have it.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to explain briefly AM policy in Japan. Next slide, please. Okay. As you know, AM has many potentials for application, such as urban use, to solve the traffic congestion without massive infrastructure investment, or disaster response without waiting for restored of existing infrastructures, and remote and mountain areas transportations. Next slide, please. To realize AM society in Japan, JCAB and Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, METI, have jointly established a public-private committee for about advanced air mobilities, bringing together stakeholders in the public and private sectors. Next slide, please. In the public and private committee, we made a roadmap of AM in Japan. There are 3 key points: utilization, environmental preparation, and technology development. And also, there are key turning point of this roadmap. That is this expo. So, okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, this is so to realize that AM flight in this expo, we made many activities. For conventional aircraft, there are many long history, and there are a lot of lessons and learned from accident and incident. But for AM, there is no international harmonized standard. So we discuss in the committee and relevant standards such as aircraft design, pilot, operation, and vertiport were established sequentially and completed to the end of the fiscal year 2023. In addition to the standards, to ensure safe and smooth flight around Expo, we determined the system for traffic management for AAM. Next, sorry. This is a brief explanation of legal framework of AAM. AAM are defined. There are several types of AAMs, such as vectored thrust, lift and cruise, or multirotors. For vectored and thrust and lift and cruise, we categorize these aircraft as airplane, and for multirotors, we categorize rotorcraft. In addition to this, a term of fuel is defined to include electronic energy, and the term of engine is defined to include electric engines. This slide shows concrete related to standards such as aircraft operation, personal license, air transport regulation, and vertiport. For considering the novel design feature or new operation method, we made these standards very flexibly to the each AAMs. Okay, this shows this Osaka Kansai Expo overview. The theme is designing future society for our lives, and the concept is testing ground for future society. So AM is very fit for this theme and concept. There are several operators and aircraft related to this expo. 4 operators are related, and 5 aircraft are related to this expo. To aim to provide industry stakeholders with necessary information and share awareness and outline key components of AM, we discussed and published AM concept operations, CONOPS. In the CONOPS, there are several outlines, such as categorization of aircraft, use case, or on-ground infrastructure, such as vertiports, and traffic management, and role and responsibility of each stakeholders. Also, there are the phase of AM introductions. Starting is phase 0 testing, and phase 1 is the first low-density commercial operations, and medium to, and finally, phase 3, high density and automated or autonomous operations. So that's all of my presentation. Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Takara-san. Thank you for giving us an overview of the regulation in Japan. And of course, one thing you highlight is similar to what we learned in the previous panel as well, the need for harmonized regulation. Very, very important, and standards. Let's move on to our next question. And this is to Noriyuki Hirayama-san. So perhaps could we have the presentation of Noriyuki Hirayama-san, please, whilst I ask the question. So several research programs in Europe are exploring and industrializing technology solutions for preparing the ecosystem for advanced air mobility. How is Japan coordinating this research for advanced air mobility, please?
Thank you for your request. Hello, ciao, konnichiwa, everyone. I really appreciate Puglia region and Munish giving me the opportunity for introducing our project. First, before introducing our project, let me introduce my organization, NEDO. NEDO is a national and development agency that creates innovation by promoting technological development necessary for realization of a sustainable society under Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry in Japan. And we act as an innovation accelerator to contribute to the resolution of social issues by developing and demonstrating high-risk innovative technologies having practical application. NEDO has overseas offices in Paris, Silicon Valley, and so on. Now, let's move on with RIAMO project. This shows the figures of the RIAMO project. RIAMO is one of the national R&D projects for implementing AAM and stands for Realization of Advanced Air Mobility. Its 5 years duration started in August 2022. It will be finished in March 2027. It comes with about 90 million euro budget. Our project team has 42 partners, including industries, universities, and institutes. Today's participants here, Arai-san from NEC and Sugiyama-san from ORIX, are participating in RIAMO. Now, I talk about the scope of RIAMO. RIAMO mainly focuses on phase 2 of AAM CONOPS. As Yamamoto-san from JCAB mentioned previously, AAM CONOPS describes the overall ecosystem while focusing on the main components of AAM in order to promote the development of AAM industry in Japan. It outlines the key components and stakeholders, describes three phases of gradual implementation. In phase 2, AAM will be able to fly over urban areas and depart from, arrive at airports. UAM corridor will be implemented. Traffic management services, including UAM corridors, will contribute to realize high-density operations. UATM services, UAM traffic management services, have 5 features, such as information exchange and sharing, airspace management, conflict management, flight plan authorization, conformance monitoring, and coordination. Oh, sorry. Then, this shows R&D objectives of the RIAM project. AAM including drones and eVTOLs, are expected to provide unrestricted mobility of goods and people using less energy and without human intervention. To achieve this, their safety must be guaranteed while also establishing efficient flight operations. This project is expected to realize AAM ecosystem. It will be carried out for the development of performance evaluation methods and traffic management technologies in low-altitude airspace among drones, eVTOLs, and other conventional aircrafts. Especially for implementing eVTOL, we are developing UATM system architecture and vertiport operation procedures in the theme of traffic management technologies, and developing environment test methods for electric propulsion systems in the theme of performance evaluation methodologies. From now on, I'd like to introduce UATM system architecture and vertiport operation procedures. These technologies aim to realize safer and more efficient flights of eVTOLs. First, this shows UATM system architecture we are proposing. This architecture has components of SDSP, VAS, vertiport automation system, UATMS, and information exchange, while implementing pre-flight conflict management and in-flight conformance monitoring. Last year, we tried to verify the proposed architecture in the combined environment, including physical helicopters and virtual aircrafts for increasing number of aircrafts. As a result, we found that this UATM system prototype was enabled to operate multiple flights properly, and these UATM procedures was feasible. Second, we are developing operational procedure for eVTOL flights. We are trying to verify communications among vertiport operators, eVTOL operators, and ANSP through conducting normal and irregular physical scenarios. Taking examples of irregular scenarios, if an aircraft is having trouble with batteries and have to return to a departure vertiport, how the other aircrafts act? If a vertiport is having trouble with emergency and any craft cannot land at the airport, how these aircrafts act? My pleasure is over. It's my pleasure to introduce our activities. Thank you. Grazie. ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nori-san. Thank you for sharing the Riamo project and the wonderful work going on. Let's move on from that project now to NEC to talk a bit about the urban air traffic management system. And I would ask Takanari Arai-san, can we load the presentation for Takanari Arai-san? Sir, the advanced air mobility will require traffic management system which is suited for the middle to high volume solutions, particularly in complex urban airspace. What do you think are the challenges being faced in developing this traffic management system in Japan particularly, and where in that development life cycle do you think Japan is, please?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting today. I have great opportunity to participate in the session. Hi, and my name is Takanari Arai. Hi, I am with NEC Corporation's Aerospace Solutions Department, where I am responsible for new business development. Currently, I am engaged in the development of the UATM systems for advanced air mobility and the project leader for Riamo project with Mr. Hirayama.
Okay.
Hi. I'm excited to introduce you to NEC and share our vision for the future of advanced air mobility, those involved in Beijing Liang project. So NEC aviation business is I would like to provide an overview of NEC's involvement in the aviation sectors. So for 5 years, 50 years, NECs have been supporting safe and secure air traffic operations from departure to arrival. And next, right, to answer to your questions, I'd like to refer to our future vision, which outline our aspiring and direction. This page is a concept of diagram of low altitude airspace operations. It shows how various aerial vehicles, includes manned aircraft, drones, and flying cars can be integrated and managed safely and efficiently. And the key element is include flight management, AM integration at airport, and automated and autonomous flight air mobility management, and ensuring safety, the separation and information dissemination. And I would like to briefly introduce two technological initializing and particulars. First is supporting pre-flight coordinations. And the second is AM mobility for into airport. Yes. Okay. Details. Hi. This page is concept diagrams of the low altitude airspace operations. It shows how various air vehicles, include managed unmanned drones, and flying cars can be integrated and managed safety and efficiently. Key elements including flight management, AM integration at airport, automated and autonomous flight air mobility management, and ensuring safety, the separation and information dissemination. And I would like to briefly introduce two technology initiatives and practices. Important. First is a service supporting pre-flight coordination, and second is integration of a signal of multiple operation into airports. And we believe that these two elements are essential for the future development of the advanced air mobility, especially as operation becomes more defensive schedules. It's a very important issue. So I finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Takahari-san. Maybe this is a good time to bring Alberto you, because we can then perhaps try and compare it. I think there is a microphone here. We can compare how the approach that Japan has taken for air traffic management, and try and compare it with the way in Europe, particularly in Italy, ENAV is taking to try and see. Do you see similarities in the two approaches?
Indeed, Munish, thank you. While I was listening to my distinguished fellow panelists, these slides could have been EU slides, namely that this could have been Italian slides. And this is not only because we are obviously addressing the same issues, but there is a strong, the more I'm listening to you, and the stronger I get the feeling that we're looking at these issues from the same perspective. So definitely, yes, we have similar solutions in place, and we have similar ideas on new solutions that have to be implemented. And on this, please allow me to somehow repeat myself. To accommodate unmanned traffic, Europe already defined a comprehensive framework, which is U-Space, and we're actually working within the framework, also being aware of the fact that that framework must quickly evolve. So U-Space is the way. For the newcomers, eVTOL, advanced air mobility, air taxis, all these solutions, again, we're aware of the fact that in the medium-long run, we are aiming to total integration, but we have to get there, step by step. So initial solutions are there. We're also thinking of corridors, which will allow the first operations to take place, and we would dynamically, flexibly manage these corridors in order to integrate them within the general air picture. Moving from there, we can go much further and possibly develop a solution which gives all different kinds of traffic flying in the same airspace volume, the same kind of service. So one airspace, one service. We'll get there.
Very, very interesting. I think this also sets the scene for opportunities where the two regions could possibly collaborate. Because we can collaborate when there are differences, but we can also collaborate when there are similarities. And I think you've set the scene very nicely, where I think going forward, events such as these, no doubt, will be very, very useful. But I also think some projects with joint teams from both regions could come together and spend time both in Italy as well as in Japan to look at aspects that are similar, perhaps from different eyes, European eyes or Japanese eyes, so because the perspectives can be different, and also because although the airspace theory stays the same, the dynamics of traffic in the air are different in different territories, in different airspace. Also in Japan itself, there being a lot more mountains here as such, and you're surrounded by a lot of water around here. And no doubt in Italy also the topography is slightly different. So I think the joint projects here would be very, very useful. Thank you very much. I'd like to now move to the next speaker, which is Ryo Sugiyama-san. Could you load the presentations of Ryo Sugiyama-san, please? Ryo-san, what difficulties do you face, or did you face, when developing the Expo Vertiport, which is where we are sitting, the wonderful, wonderful facility here? And are there any specific sort of technology or demand-related or geographical needs in Japan that drive the Vertiport design, please?
Okay. Firstly, thank you for inviting today. And my English is not good, but let me try to English presentation.
Thank you.
And especially my English is not good, especially in grammar. But so please listen to carefully. Yeah.
Thank you.
Then the difficulty part to developing Vertiport, Expo Vertiport, is because for aircraft manufacturer developing and certifying the eVTOL, TC, then in parallel, ORIX needs to design. So then, especially and at the beginning, each aircraft maker try to the commercial aircraft, commercial flight. But as you know, our Expo in Expo, all flight is demo flight, not commercial flight. Yeah. Then, and as a design part, and the difficult part, is this is our Expo Vertiport. Then right hand is the picture. Then, and you can walk from here on 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Then you can see by your eye. So please visit. Then the difficult part is like charger, because for aircraft maker, then and we need to prepare the floor space, area, and the the specification is very different from each aircraft.
Okay.
Yeah. Therefore, we need some space, and we need to change the cable. How can I say the cable like electric pressure?
Okay.
Yeah. This kind of difficulty is there in Expo Batchport. So, but I believe each aircraft maker try to the common one. Like Beta has an initiative to set as a common charger, as I know. And in the future, the charger issue will be fixed as the like fueling. In the airport, fueling is common in the world. Then the charger should be the common. So that issue will be clear in the future. Right. That is my understanding. Then, and what is the impact to the design the Batchport is, I think in the future, a lot of flights is started. At Expo, 2 or 3 flights per day. Or, for example, today, no flight. But maybe July and SkyDrive will fly, but I think 2 or 3 flights. Yeah. Then in September or October, Joby from US is flying. But I guess they fly 3 flights or 4 flights per day. Okay. So at that time, that's okay. We can accept here. But in the future, a lot of flight is fly in a low altitude, right? Then at that time, drone is flying too. Yeah, at that time, to safety and efficiency, like the LIAMO system or some kind of system is needed. I think that is a kind of UATM system. Then at that time, on the ground, like our field, and we need to grasp physically how aircraft is there. Then such kind of information is, I think, physically we catch, then transfer to VAS, Batchport Automation System. Then from Batchport Automation System to UATM. Then, and this kind of information is necessary to efficient and safety operation in a low altitude. So then that kind of, how can I say, arrangement, then at that time, that is influence to the Batchport design. That is my understanding. Then that's why Oryx belongs to LIAMO project. Yeah. Then, and we developing together with NEDO and NEC and also JCAB. Yeah. So, and
thank you.
Yeah, okay, that's okay.
Thank you, Ryo-san. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's interesting how a vertiport, the criteria for vertiport is impacted by so many drivers, no doubt. The type of aircraft that flies from it, no doubt. The flight routes, and of course the demand that exists over there. And then your need or your ability, of course, to deconflict with the small drones that might be flying in future there as well. I'd like to go to Carlo before I come to Giuseppe. Carlo, I hope you're still with us. Just taking a leaf out of what Ryo-san just talked about, the drivers for vertiport design in Japan. Are these drivers similar in Europe, or are there some differences, please?
For the most part, I would argue they are. Obviously, there are some peculiarities, and some of those are shared between Europe and Japan, and some of them are probably very peculiar to Europe and to Italy in particular. I have to say that being an Italian player and having focused quite a bit on designing vertiports and networks of vertiports in Italy, in different Italian regions, we have a diverse enough country and market that we have had the opportunity to really face very different type of use cases, very different types of settings. So we have worked on ground vertiports, rooftop vertiports, floating vertiports. We have been working on vertiports for passenger use, for medical use, for, let's say, scheduled transport, for on-demand private transfers. So a number of different use cases. And, just as an example, For the Puglia region, together with DTA and with Giuseppe's team, we have studied a number of potential applications for innovative air mobility in the Puglia region, focusing both on vertiports and on drone ports. And there are some use cases that are very peculiar to Puglia, which obviously differ from, for example, what we have studied for the area of Rome or for the area of Venice or for other areas in northern Italy. Some of the peculiarities that I would mention is that, obviously there are some specificities when it comes to technology and to some of the interfaces that you need to develop in order to be able to communicate with the different stakeholders, but also on the on the practical side, on the ground, actually, there are some specificities. In Italy and in Europe, not only were our cities definitely not designed for vertiports and eVTOL, I would argue that that's the case for most cities around the world. But as a matter of fact, most of our cities were not even designed for cars, right? So they were, the history of European cities and Italian cities goes back a very, very long time. And what this means is that already today, those cities are very congested on the ground with cars and not enough lanes for streets and not enough parking space on the ground. What this also means as a consequence is that when you look at integrating vertiports into urban areas, you need to deal with very, very limited space. Ideally, you would love to have larger areas available also for urban vertiports, because keep in mind that unlike other types of let's say aerodromes or aviation infrastructure, vertiports will also need to provide for charging for eVTOL. And if you only have one landing spot, one FARO, and that's all the space, all that you have in terms of available space, that means that if the eVTOL that lands needs to recharge, for the entire time that the eVTOL is charging, you cannot utilize that vertiport or vertipad, or whatever you want to call it, for performing other landings or takeoffs. So as a consequence, you would love to have sufficient space for every vertiport to have parking stands adjacent to FAROs, to landing and takeoff surfaces, so that you could maximize the number of flights, so provide more available seats to passengers eventually that want to reach the destination or to fly out of that location. As a matter of fact, in Europe, you do not have those spaces in most cities, in most urban contexts. Yeah. What this means, this implies a couple of things. First of all, actually, we like to, one of the mantras of, I would argue, most vertiport developers is the concept of developing technology agnostic vertiports. And what this means is making sure that our vertiports are able to accommodate all different types of eVTOL, all the major types of eVTOL that are coming to market over the next few years. And that is true by all means. But you need to keep in mind that not all eVTOL are designed equal. Some are multicopters, some are winged, different technologies. We had an overview, we saw an overview with one of the fellow panelists earlier today. And not necessarily all of these technologies will be compatible with very densely populated urban settings, both in terms of space that is required on the ground, of the way those eVTOLs take off and land, the paths that they need to follow, and also in terms of their noise footprint of different types that different types of technologies implies. But the other implication is that the space limitation, the space constraints that we have on the ground, forced us to think more at a network level, not only at a single vertiport level, but at a network level, and to think how to optimize network utilization and to maximize utilization of every vertiport, for example, by displacing some of the charging locations outside of vertiports in nearby locations that sometimes might be available. Yeah. And so, for example, we are designing networks in which sometimes you might have some locations that are used only for recharging. So effectively some charging stations, some eVTOL charging stations that are adjacent or in close proximity to vertiports, but not equipped for passenger processing, just equipped with chargers, so that eVTOL that landed at a vertiport can quickly free up that same vertiport for other eVTOL to take off, to land and take off from that same place, while they can go and recharge at a nearby station without limiting traffic. So there are a number of considerations, you know, and some of them are also very peculiar. For example, we have gone through the exercise of obtaining permits for some of our early vertiports in Italy, and you know, going through permitting exercise in Italy also means that, for example, you have to deal with some authorities that probably might not be necessarily involved in vertiport permitting in other countries, in other markets around the world. For example, archaeological authorities, right? You know, in Italy we are fortunate and to have you know, lots of archaeological sites, and inevitably, if you want to fly into cities, over cities, you end up flying in close proximity to or above important archaeological sites. And so one of the authorities that we need to consult for permitting is the archaeological authority. And this, you know, again, there are examples that vary city by city, region by region, depending on whether you fly over the land, over the water, or what type of vertiports or what type of service you are developing.
And that's a very good point you make, Carlo, because there are the technical aspects, but there are non-technical aspects that we need to think about. And that brings me, thank you very much, Carlo, for that. That brings me, gives me an opportunity to bring Giuseppe into it. And Giuseppe, you know, we've learned about similarities and differences in approach between the two regions. Now, Taranto-Grottaglia testbed in Puglia region of Italy is one of the premier testbeds in Europe. It's suitable for testing advanced air mobility flights. Can you give us a status of the readiness of this testbed? Where exactly is it? Is it ready now? Is it operational now? And what kind of collaboration opportunities do you think, from your perspective, could there be between Japan and Italy, please?
Okay, thank you again. So it has been a long journey. Doesn't mean that it has finished. No. It's continuing, but it has been a long journey because already in 2014 we have the declaration of INAC, which is the Civil Aviation Authority, to use the Grottaglia Airport first in order to support the development of new technologies belonging to the innovation in aerospace. So it means that the testbed that is located in a commercial airport is in a position in which any activity in that airport must be oriented to the experimentation before all the other activities. So in a hierarchy, the drones experimentation is on top. And that happened in 2014, but many things have happened later on. And I think we have been able to position in an institutional framework and in a European strategy the testbed, because then we had the opportunity to start with Munich, with the U-Space network stakeholder, and we made another step ahead. And then we had the opportunity to build the first national infrastructure dedicated to the drones. It's a national financed by the European Commission, thanks to the commitment of the Apulia region. And again, we are speaking about 2014, although we are delivering now. We have just finished the installation, but that was the time which we started. And now we are in the flourishing of the activities related to the drone strategy, in which there is a flagship that suits, but it not only suits our position, allow us, and thank again Munich for the support that you have given till now, and I'm sure you will continue to give, to be one of the nodes of the network that the European Commission is building in order to facilitate the use of this infrastructure to push on the needs of technology belonging not only by the civil dimension, but also by the defense dimension. So it means that its position is well known, has got an institutional role, let's say, and it helps the ambition of Europe. The second thing that I would say that we have built is an ecosystem. So if I think at the people that is participating to this meeting, I don't know, we have different activities made under the umbrella of Eurocontrol in a CESAR program. We have also the first partner in terms of project activities is INAV. Carlo said what we are doing with Urban V in the city of Bari. From vertical, we heard that Leonardo in Grottaglie is building the prototype of their fuselage or maybe of their eVTOL. But many other things that I just can say that with Leonardo we built, and with D-Flight, with Telespazio, the first layer of the infrastructure that now is increasing thanks to the investment. So there is an ecosystem that gave us the opportunity to make a lot of experimentation. And this is a second fact that I think is important because it's already there. And I would add that in 2018 we fought to integrate our need of know-how to develop not only in the extra-urban dimension, but also in the urban dimension. So we work on a test range in the city of Bari, which is the biggest city of our region, so that the infrastructure could be the master in Grottaglie, and Bari could be the slave in an integration of activities that solve and seize different necessities and different problems. And then we have an infrastructure that is technologically adequate for activity. I'm speaking about Grottaglie now in low-density airspace. That's why I have a short presentation, and I will have also a short video in order to summarize the activities that we have already done. And this is something that can help me at the end to answer to the last part of your question about the possible interest of cooperation. Please, I think that I can go on my own. Yep. So this is the scope of the infrastructure. It's research and development, experimentation, certification, and professional training. And so there is the place in which you can find an answer to this kind of needs. Of course, we can't do everything. There is maybe some verticals that are more mature than others. But the idea is always to have a circular approach in which the need, let's say, drive this process, in which we think and we believe from the beginning that the regulator can find in an initiative like this something that can be useful to approach the improvement of the regulations. That's why also with the INAV and the INAC already in 2016 and 2015, we signed an agreement in order to direction the use of the infrastructure in this, with this approach, looking also at the needs and the interests of the regulators. As I told you, there is an ecosystem that is involved with also some universities that accompany us. And in this ecosystem, I would say maybe one of the most important things that we have reached is to create a territory as infrastructure. So we do not think that now Grottaglie is our infrastructure. In our opinion, Apulia is our infrastructure, not only because there is urban and ex-urban installation or infrastructure, but because there is a public dimension in which the public authorities believe that there is one of the challenges for the future of Apulia, not only for the future of airspace. And it means that also facing the problems that are related to acceptance can find a nest in which there are the conditions to better manage the impact of what you are doing on the population. Just a short look, we have 3 airspace dedicated. One is on the sea. You can see there is a low density population, especially when we are not in the summer. I would say that is not scarce as we do not have people on the beach, of course, during the winter. But the rest of the year, there is under 10 person for square kilometers. And nowadays, we are leveraging on the realization of some laboratories. So there is not only a flight test dedicated with radars, with tracking to follow the operation, but there are also some laboratories that want to join some other needs in terms of technological readiness about some technologies, and in particular, you can see on the left side of the chart what has been done, and there are laboratories that are on the test bed on the airport, and they are managed with the universities that are involved. 3 universities, each one in its proper domain in which they are most maybe skilled. And this is just a little, let's say, a little explanation on the technological asset. And I think the best way is to give you another example is to just, please, the video is just 1 minute and 30 seconds. Maybe we can better understand what's happening in there. Please. You maybe have seen in the last chart that we have already gained a lot of experience in terms of activities that have been done, and I think this make a thick, let's say, layer of capabilities, but also of know-how related to the intensity of the activities that have been done. So going back to your final question. I heard some words that I would like to underline again. You spoke about opening of the market. You spoke about harmonization, and you spoke about cooperation and collaboration. So we do believe that this could be, for the reason that I've already told in the beginning of this presentation, that there are maybe the best condition to find a place in which we can develop an interoperational, let's say, validation center, dedicated thanks to activities that can be done. For example, starting with pilot project like medical goods transportation, because we have done different activities on this, and there are some of them under the umbrella in CESAR, under the umbrella of Eurocontrol. So that one could be the right place in which the ambition of harmonization, the ambition of scale up in terms of know-how, and the ambition to work for a global market, also according to what we heard about the lack of operator in Europe. So this is some weakness, at least in the short period, that can be also find in international operator and advance let's say, in going ahead. I think that that could be the right place to think about after this meeting how to improve such a kind of operation. I would like also to hear from your opinion, if it's possible, of the other colleague, and I think that's a path on which we can surely work in the next future.
Thank you, Giuseppe, and conscious of the time, no doubt, but I'd like an opinion from our Japanese colleagues. You've listened to what European guys have had to say. We've listened to the Japanese landscape as well. Do you see any opportunities where we can collaborate, whether it's in research or it's in development or validation. It could even be within simulation activities, fast time simulation or real time simulations. Because I believe, as Alberto, I use Alberto's words once again, there are similarities that we can collaborate in, and there are differences that we can collaborate in. Any views from your side, sir? Anything that you feel there could be opportunities to collaborate? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
ちょっとじゃあ日本語でお答えさせていただいお答えしますけれども、コラボレーションっていう意味では、例えば、ユーザートランスレート。
Go ahead.
今後日本ではですね、やはり空港乗り入れみたいなところが非常に注目されていると。で、それは事業者さんですね、運航者さんについても、その必要性というのは非常に謳われていますので、そういったところで結構今見てると欧州の方がリードしているところもあると思いますので、そのあたりを我々参考にしたいなと思ってますし、そういったところその研究とか開発の部分で協力しながらですね、意見交換させていければなというふうに思っております。
Thank you. Anything from your side, from research side, perhaps?
I'd like to speak in English, in Japanese. そうですね。一つがちょうど今新井さんが空港乗り入れの話を言われてましたけども、空港乗りのユースケースっていうのもですね、本当に高密度から低密度まで本当にいろんなシチュエーションがあると思ってまして、日本もやっぱりそういった議論は出てきたりはするんですけども、結局そのコノプスを決めるところで多分なかなか議論が進まない。高密度だっていう人もいれば、そんな1日数便しか飛ばない人もいると、そこをですねやっぱり足並みを揃えるっていうところの、考え方ですかね、そのあたりは多分ヨーロッパに先行しているヨーロッパに学ぶところがあるのかなというふうにはちょっと感じているところですね。ぜひそういったスコープを決めるというところからですね、一緒になんかコラボレーションして進められるといいかなとちょっと思っております。
Thank you, Nori-san. Thank you very much for sharing your views. Anyone else? Kotaro-san, do you have any, or Ryo-san?
じゃあ日本語でルールメイキングの観点からは、我々EASA 含めて関係する当局といろいろとその調整とか図ったりディスカッションはずっと続けているところでございます。でまた研究開発についてはリアンも平山さんとかと共にずっと続けているところなんですけれども、まさにその AAM については新しいものですので、研究開発とともにルールメイキングをやっていくっていうことが重要だと考えています。そういった意味では欧州側の研究開発機関とそれから当局、さらに我々側の研究機関とそれから当局が4社でですねコラボレートしていくっていうのはなかなか面白いし、かついい解決が持てるんじゃないかなというふうに期待しています。
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything you want to add to Ryo-san?
I try in English. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if there is a room about the VAS, batch port automation system, yeah, I want to try because for safety and efficient operation in a low altitude, I think the UATM is important, but VAS is also important. Yeah. But VAS field-wise, I think the information is very limited. So if you are already developing that field, I'm very interested in.
Sure. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I mean, I thought we will only have possibly one or two areas of collaboration, but I think we have more than one or two, which is very heartening, and that's really the whole purpose of this forum, ladies and gentlemen. which was to learn from each other, to appreciate our diversity, but also to appreciate our similarities, because collaboration is everywhere. And I think from what I've heard, and I hope what you've heard as well, from all our Japanese colleagues as well as our European colleagues, both in person here, as well as those who are logged in remotely, I think opportunities for collaboration are there. And since this is something that we're all doing at the first time, really collaboration is the way forward itself. I think we've run out of time. I won't be able to take any more questions, but I think some of the people will be here. So if you have any questions, please do feel free to talk to them. With this, I would very much like to thank the panelists who are actually logged in online, Carlo as well as Robin. Thank you for your time. And I'd like to thank the panelists who are here in person, and you, ladies and gentlemen, for being so patient and also listening and appreciating the wise words from so many of our experts. Thank you all very much. I think it's time now that we call this meeting closed. Thank you all very much. Francesca, was there anything else you want to?
So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for our partners and to Aerocontrol Munich for your coordination, and DTA Giuseppe Acerno and the other guests. Thank you so much for your support and participation to this interesting panel workshop. Is for all a great opportunity to benchmark between similar problems and try to find similar solution. Yeah. So now we want to thank you with a little gift. And then we want to invite on sixth floor for a little lunch, a typical Puglia lunch. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you, Francesca.